Hey boys, with the start of the 2024 league year hours away at this point, starting March 13th at 3 p.m. Central Time, that's Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time, the league year starts, which means players can officially sign. Everything gets underway. Right now, we're in a 48-hour window of contract negotiations. We've got a lot of money going off the board, players moving. I want to talk, obviously, about some Detroit Lions moves, but we're going to talk about one of our hometown heroes getting a big payday heading from Minnesota down to Atlanta. This is the Hat and Beard Show. I'm your host with the mostest, Hat and Beard. I'm here to say the quiet part out loud. Let's get into it, fellas.
We're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
All right, hey boys, I appreciate you hanging out and checking this out. First, I want to talk about Captain Kirk Cousins. Those of us here from Detroit that are Detroit Lions fans, we've known Kirk Cousins for about 6 years here in Minnesota. Obviously, he was drafted by the Redskins a few years back out of East Lansing, Michigan State University, which is where I, of course, started my, I don't want to say love for Kirk Cousins, but appreciation for him. I used to be a longtime Spartan fan, and Kirk Cousins was one of those glory players that was able to pair his unique abilities with underappreciated talent like Lev Bell and be coached up by Mark D'Antonio, who, in my opinion, deserves a statue outside of Spartan Stadium for all that he was able to accomplish with the program that he had inherited and then was able to cultivate for 5, 6, 7 years before eventually letting the game slip him by. Now, I do say I used to be a fan of the Michigan State University Spartans. There's a lot of ties there I have. I myself worked there over a decade. Hat and Boobs has a receipt for going there for 4 or 5 years. I have family members that work there, family members that have retired from there. But there are two main reasons why Michigan State University can just, suck a fart straight out of my ass. And that is, number one, for over a decade, they facilitated and covered up, let's just say, a fan of the playground and somebody who took advantage of people in compromising situations and then covered it up for over a decade. And the president of the university at the time of that, who was able to facilitate all of this cover up, well, after she just unceremoniously dipped out in the middle of the night, she then also got to keep all of her benefits. And with it being a state university, it's taxpayer funded. So that really just burns a coal in my ass. And the second thing is, now this might seem a little obscure. Try and think back, y'all. Try and think back. Yeah, I know it's a long, long time ago, but a few years ago, there was this sickness that was going around that was nothing more than a cold or a bad flu at worst. And the university not only decided to withhold degrees from people, because there is a story of a guy who was able to complete his schooling 100% online because he had medical and religious exemptions from getting the jab, the Fauci jab. And the university, even though he had amassed all of his credits and had actual exemptions, because at the time we were still pretending that this was like the end of mankind, right? And the university withheld his degree from him because he wouldn't get the jab. They just told him, no, you did all your credits, you did all your work, you paid us all the money. No, do as we tell you. You will do as we tell you, or you will not get your hyper overinflated piece of paper that says, gee golly jeepers, gee willikers, Batman, you're so good at regurgitating information. Congratulations. But unfortunately, this individual refused to go along with the indoctrination station that is a state-funded university during the time of, well, let's just say an unknown virus from unknown origins that was somehow able to just completely stop the world in its tracks and had absolutely nothing to do with controlling the outcome of a possible election that maybe or maybe didn't happen in 2020. Also, they forced the hand of family members of mine to get the jab. Otherwise, they were going to fire them. individuals who'd worked more than, I think at this point, over 2 decades at the university. And they were going to just cut them loose because the state indoctrination station, the king said, you will get this or you will not be tolerated on our grounds, on our taxpayer-funded public grounds. So those are the 2 reasons why I'm no longer a fan of the Michigan State University Spartans. In my honest opinion, everything out in East Lansing, Michigan on that campus, outside of the cyclotron, bulldoze the whole fucking thing, turn it into a big old green space. It's just a waste of space, taxpayer dollars. Secondary education's a scam. I'm sorry for all of you that ended up taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars of federally backed funding that the college institutions knew that they were going to be getting this guaranteed money, so they overinflated the price of tuition to force you to borrow money on an adjustable interest rate that you're just never going to get ahead on because you borrowed $100,000 and ended up getting a $48,000 a year job. Congratulations, you played yourself. But that doesn't have any bearing on my fandom of Kirk Cousins. And it's weird because Captain Kirk, obviously, for 6 years, that's 12 matchups against the Detroit Lions in the regular season. It's been hard to watch because Kirk Cousins is a highly underrated quarterback. He's getting now paid like a top 10 quarterback. Statistically speaking, Kirk Cousins he's like Jared Goff, right? He's better than most, but he's not flashy. He's not electric. He's not dominant as far as a physical specimen like an Anthony Richardson or even the guy who wears little towels around his Johnson down in Cleveland, right? And likes to touch masseuse, right? Against their will, right? But Kirk Cousins has been we'll just say the high water mark for consistency in the NFL. Last season was a little rough for him, but if you look at the stats before the injury, he was actually having a potential MVP caliber season in Minnesota. And when you put the right tools around Kirk Cousins, he can take your team to an NFC title game, right? He can get you over the line because he's a smart enough player and he's got a strong enough arm to make complex throws. He's also an incredibly cerebral player and can dissect defenses. He's a student of the game. So Kirk Cousins, this is coming to us from NFL.com. Thanks for hanging with me on that little bit of a tangent there, guys. I know we got a little off into the weeds, but what you going to do? Kirk Cousins' 6-year run in Minneapolis is over. The veteran quarterback has agreed to a 4-year, $180 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons on Monday. NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reported. Cousins' deal includes $50 million to sign his name to the contract. He's got a $50 million signing bonus coming his way. And, for a under-recruited, underappreciated kid from Holland, Michigan, who was able to parlay a quarterback battle, right? Because at the time of him coming into Michigan State, there was him, Nick Foles, and, oh gosh, who was this other kid? This other kid out of Lowell. Oh man, he ended up switching to wide receiver. I can't remember what it was. But there was these 3 guys, and obviously we know the career Nick Foles ended up having, bouncing around the league, and I ended up winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles, right? There were all these guys at Michigan State at the same time, and Kirk Cousins ended up beating them all out to become the starting quarterback at Michigan State University, right? So this kid who was underappreciated and an afterthought is now getting $50 million signing bonuses on his 3rd team. He's 35 years old. This is his 3rd stint with an NFL program, right? He's not some spring chicken. He's probably just post the prime of his career. There's probably still a good amount left in the tank for him to be a successful quarterback at a high level, but prime Kirk Cousins is probably past him. Obviously, guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they break the mold and change the narrative. Kirk Cousins, can he be this guy? Can he bounce back from an Achilles injury and continue to be an upper echelon, borderline elite level quarterback? We'll see, but he finds a great spot in Atlanta. So he ended up bagging a $50 million signing bonus and $90 million in guarantees over the next 2 seasons, with an additional $10 million guaranteed in 2026. That means that Kirk Cousins is guaranteed $100 million from the Atlanta Falcons. Guaranteed money. Guaranteed money. $100 million. Good on you, bro. Good on you. And you know what? I don't care really, it's just a good story for us, for the kid, right? Like, I know he's not just some kid from Holland, Michigan anymore, but it's still, it's just a good little story that you get. Cousins' move to Atlanta was announced by his agent, Mike McCartney. Monday's news is equally shocking as he's departing Minnesota, where he'd made a comfortable home for he and his family with consistent play over the last 6 seasons, and because of the destination. Most had expected Cousins, 35, to return to Minneapolis, primarily because the Vikings had just received a first-hand lesson in how difficult the NFL can be without a franchise quarterback. Yeah, it was rough, right? This season was rough for him. I mean, they had some fun with the pastronaut, Josh Dobbs, but then the wheels just fell off and everything just went south. Look, I know that was a long roundabout way of just saying good on Kirk Cousins for getting his bag. This is awesome for a Lions fan because now we know that the Vikings are going to be rebuilding, right? Now we know that the Vikings are going to be looking for a young quarterback, which gives us 2-3 years possibly of them being in a slow rebuild situation. I doubt whoever they draft is going to end up being a CJ Stroud. We're going to hope they go more of the road of a Bryce Young type and really elevate the Detroit Lions in the North by having subpar talent that we have to compete against. And when you compare whatever's going on in Chicago, now I know Chicago has a pretty good defense, right? But whatever's going on in Chicago when they decide what's going on with Justin Fields and their number 1 overall pick, yada, 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 the Bears are kind of down. The Vikings are now probably going to be down. So that basically makes it a 2-horse race in the NFC North, which is awesome. I'm not mad about that. I just, fuck the Packers. But hey, and just one last note on Kirk Cousins. I know I'm really just blowing Kirk Cousins right here, but if you look at the setup that he's walking into in Atlanta, they can afford to pay him this money because all their stars are basically on rookie scale contracts. And what Kirk Cousins is going to be able to do is he's going to be able to walk into a situation with a young running back, similar style to a prime Dalvin Cook. Okay, he's got one of the best tight ends in the league in Kyle Pitts, who was underutilized because Arthur Smith hated Kyle Pitts for whatever reason. So he's got a big body athletic tight end who he just got done playing with a big body, not necessarily athletic tight end, but he elevated the play of TJ Hawkinson. So he's got Kyle Pitts at tight end, and he's got Drake London, a big body physical wide receiver. Again, not quite Justin Jefferson, but a big-bodied, solid number 1, Drake London. He's walking into a great situation. He's got 2 electrifying running backs with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, both capable of 1,000 yards rushing, and probably both could push out 10 touchdowns. They have a very, I don't want to say similar dynamic to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but they are complementary running backs. Now, also, on top of that, Kirk Cousins gets to stay playing indoors 10 games, right? 8 home games and, 9 indoor games guaranteed, 8 home games, and then plus 1 road game in New Orleans, which is also in a dome. So, hey, Kirk Cousins staying indoors, maybe get to extend that career span a little bit longer by not having to play in the shit elements of the NFC North like Soldier Field and like Lambeau. So, yeah, as I stated before, Kirk Cousins getting that bag. Good on you, my guy.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, it's jam.
Hey, don't be a jive turkey. Like, comment, subscribe down below. Or don't.
I'm no punk bitch.
I ain't no punk bitch neither.
I'm no punk bitch.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
All right, now let's talk about some Lions news here, guys. Some Lions news. Brad Holmes doing Brad Holmes things. We got a key re-signing that I'm really happy about, and then a couple of big free agent moves. One is quietly big, in my opinion. The other, not too high on it, not mad about it. But let's get into it here. All right, from the AP, Lions agree to deal with Marcus Davenport, Graham Glasgow, and acquire Carlton Davis, AP sources say. This is coming from us from AP News. The Detroit Lions addressed 3 pressing needs Monday, 2 days before the league new year begins. Oh, I can feel the new year. It's just right there. Are you guys missing football the way I'm missing football? Fuck, man. It feels like it's been forever without any football, dude. It's just been brutal, bro. Detroit agrees to a $10.5 million one-year contract with edge rusher Marcus Davenport, according to persons familiar. And he wanted to be anonymous because it hasn't been finalized. Right here, Brad Holmes making Brad Holmes moves. Marcus Davenport, a solid producing NFL edge rusher. I think he ended up having like 12.5 sacks a couple years back in New Orleans. Played a few games in Minnesota, ended up going out with season-ending ankle injury. Brad Holmes loves to do this move right here. He loves to bring in guys who are on the rebound, who still have it, right? They still got it. Marcus Davenport still's got it in the tank, right? At least in my opinion, he's still going to have some productivity. But he wants to go and he goes and he gives them this prove-it deal, right? DJ Shark, similar situation. Alex Anzalone, similar situation. Two different situations, but similar situations. One is able to parlay that into a 3-year contract extension and is now a cornerstone, a fan favorite of the franchise. The other, although was productive, decided to go and try and be the top dog with the Keebler Elf down in Carolina. And you see how well that worked out. Very unproductive DJ Shark. I mean, it is what it is. But we got a $10.5 million a year on edge rusher Marcus Davenport, who is primarily a pass rush specialist. You're not going to see him really out there setting the line so hard and extending plays down. The man knows how to get after the ball, and I've been screaming about it for weeks. Aiden Hutchinson needs a running mate, right? Now, I did want us to obviously go after, like, say, a Brian Burns, who originally, and this is going to get really, really, really wonky here. Originally, Brian Burns was tagged with the exclusive or non-exclusive franchise tag, which the Panthers wanted 2 first-round picks for him, and now they ended up getting, like, a 3rd and a 6th from the Giants. All right, so some technical malfunctions here. I'm not going to be able to screen grab. I apparently don't have enough memory on my computer. I love this ghetto-ass setup I got going on over here. So I'm just going to read it to you here. We're just going to run down it. There isn't a whole lot to cover. The Lions also acquired cornerback Carlton Davis. Oh, that's what I was saying about Marcus Davenport. I don't know where exactly the recording cut off, but, Brad Holmes giving him a prove-it deal. You got a running mate for Aiden Hutchinson and someone who's been in the league a while to help cultivate, like a James Houston, or if we go, get another edge rusher in the draft. Pardon me, that was disgusting. I'm a pig man, and I can't stop. Oh, god damn! I ate way too much garlic today. That is fucking foul, man. That is not an enjoyable aroma. Oh. And then we also addressed secondary needs. We went ahead and traded for cornerback Carlton Davis for a 3rd-round draft pick. Well, so what we did is we traded our 3rd-round pick, one of our 2 3rd-round picks this year for Carlton Davis, and then we got a 6th-round pick this year and a 6th-round pick next year, which Brad Holmes loves to be able to leverage and parlay those 6th-round picks to move up and down the draft board, especially in like day 2, day 3. I'd expect him to try and leverage this 6th round and maybe future picks to get back up into the 2nd round. Who knows what Brad Holmes is going to do? I can't figure out Brad Holmes, man. I'm going to be honest. We're talking about corners. How are we going to address the corner need this offseason? Carlton Davis's name, I don't think ever was uttered off of anybody's lips here because he was under contract. We were looking at free agent guys like L'Jarius Sneed, right? And I didn't want L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed is going to be too expensive. So we ended up trading for Carlton Davis. What does Carlton Davis do well? The things that Cameron Sutton does bad, okay? And the things that Carlton Davis does bad, Cameron Sutton does well. So Cameron Sutton can tackle really well. He can't cover anybody, right? Can't cover shit. We've seen that all season long. And Carlton Davis is a little bit better of a cover corner, but he can't tackle shit, and he can't stay healthy at all. So I think he's got like 1 year left on this deal, so this is another prove-it type situation. I think Brad Holmes is trying to softly upgrade the cornerback position because it was so bad on the other end last year. I mean, even our number 1 corner, Cameron Sutton. High hopes coming into this year, big free agent acquisition last year. Just kind of shit the bed at the end there. I don't know, man. It looked like his hips were tight all season long. So now we're going to bring in another, I don't want to tag him with the name journeyman, but now he's starting to transition into more of a journeyman type player. What do I see from Carlton Davis? Obviously coming in and slated at the number 2 corner spot right now opposite Cameron Sutton. I keep saying Cortland Sutton. Cameron Sutton. Is he your locked-in number 2 corner all season long? That depends on what we do in the draft. What I think we're doing here is, again, bringing in not over-the-hill talent, but still seasoned talent to help cultivate young players. So this signals to me that we're probably going corner at some point in our first 2 picks. That's what I think is going to end up happening. Because when you pair Cameron Sutton and now a Carlton Davis, those are 2 experienced veterans who come with a substantial amount of playing time, a lot of snaps. Okay, even though Carlton Davis has been hurt on and off over his career, I think he's averages like 10 games a season he plays in, right, with like a 75% QBR when thrown at. So he's not awful. He fits the Emmanuel Mosley and Cameron Sutton build of prove it to me and we can make a spot for you. I totally forgot that we re-signed Emmanuel Mosley to a one-year deal after he blew out his second ACL this season. But who knows? Maybe all of this is trending in a direction. Maybe Brad Holmes wants to have seasoned veterans on the field to help cultivate. And you see the success that we were able to have with a Kirby Joseph and a Brian Branch. Both of those guys were forced into substantial amount of playing time their rookie years because of injuries. But if you look at the roster that Brad Holmes had constructed around them, they were supposed to have a reduced role. Luckily, we were able to draft guys with enough talent and on the field awareness that they were able to leverage their talent and lack of necessarily game experience to manipulate different players. I mean, Kirby Joseph basically retired Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, and Brian Branch is possibly going to be a top 5 safety over the next 3 to 4 years easily. Like, the guy is sensational. So as long as he can stay healthy, right? So do I like the Carlton Davis signing? Not too wild about it. I'm going to need to see him prove it to me. Marcus Davenport gets reunited with Brad Holmes, or with Motor City Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn. Both guys he was coached up when he when he played with New Orleans, where he was originally drafted. So there's a little bit of familiarity there. I'm going to trust in Brad Holmes and Motor City Dan Campbell that these are the right moves, though, because they have yet to prove me wrong, right? They have yet to prove any of us wrong. We just have to have trust and faith that whatever they're doing is going to work. I'm not going to scrutinize this. I'm just going to give you my take on it. Carlton Davis doesn't really move the needle for me. Marcus Davenport moves the needle for me. I like both of these acquisitions, okay? And they'll be finalized Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time when the new league season, the new season starts, and I'm so excited for that. We also need to go ahead and just drop that the Lions hit a 3-year contract with $9.5 million in guarantees, $20 million over 3 years with guard Graham Glasgow. Now, Graham Glasgow was originally drafted by the Detroit Lions many years ago. He left because Fat Patricia was a piece of shit and hated players more than he hated anything else in his life and made it miserable for guys to play in Detroit. After the culture change, Graham Glasgow came back to Detroit on a 1-year deal this last season as kind of, I don't want to say prove it, but he was supposed to be more of a utility player, right? He wasn't slotted to be a starter. It was supposed to be Jonah Jackson on one guard and Halapaloo Tavati Vaitai at the other guard. Big Hal, his back was never going to be right after the injury a couple years back. Jonah Jackson, we'll get there. But Graham Glasgow came in, plug and play at the right guard spot, and played sensationally. He played better than his contract. He outplayed the contract that he was getting easily. And the Lions re-signing him is a brilliant move, right? Not only is he a veteran, not only does he play well, but he's a multifaceted guard, right? He can easily slide over and play center if, God forbid, anything happens to Frank Ragnow. And he can play center at a good high level. Brad Holmes likes these multi-dimensional interior offensive linemen. We went from Evan Brown to Graham Glasgow, and now we have Graham Glasgow for 3 years, more or less, probably about 2. If we really got into the nitty-gritty details of the contract, it's probably more front-loaded because he's a little bit older, leaving us room to cut him on the back end of his contract and free up a little bit of cap space. I really like the Graham Glasgow signing. When I seen the news that broke, I was like, oh, well, that indefinitely means that we're going to be trading away or not re-signing Jonah Jackson, which ended up being the reality of the situation. Jonah Jackson, tentatively, he will not be re-signing with the Detroit Lions. He's got an offer sheet from the LA Rams going for, $51 million with like $30 million in guaranteed. 27 years old. I think it's like a 4-year deal. So good on him. You know, that's a nice little move for Jonah Jackson. I'm not going to be mad at it. He's getting his bag. Yeah, 27-year-old Jonah Jackson with the LA Rams. 3-year contract, potentially worth $51 million and $34 million in guaranteed, according to a person knowledge of the deal. So good on Jonah Jackson. I'm not mad about that. I was kind of hoping we wouldn't re-sign him because he's going to be such a cap hit for a player who is descending, not ascending. Graham Glasgow at least maintained, if not ascended a little bit. So now we need to just go ahead and just slot in Cooper Beebe. Let's go after Cooper Beebe. I need us to draft Cooper Beebe, the guard out of Kansas State. Cooper Beebe, let's go. Let's go. So that's just a little bit of Lions news. I know we got a little carried away at the beginning with some nonsense and some personal stuff that, I just felt like sharing with you guys. So, yeah, well, that's going to do it for me. We'll see how this shakes out with the technical difficulties. I appreciate you guys sticking around. Try and have yourself a good rest of the week. Stay out of trouble. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Keep your stick on the ice. If she doesn't find you handsome, at least she'll find you handy. I've been Hat and Beard. You've been an attentive audience. Rig off.